There's a really interesting and a really useful group of functions in Excel, which I call the combination if functions. And it contains things like Countif, SUMIF, AVERAGEIF, MAXIF, and MINIF. And then also the plurals of each of those. You've got things like Countifs and SUMIFs and so on. Now, if you think of something like the count function, count is counting stuff based on the type, as in it's looking for numbers and it tells you how many numbers in a range of cells. You've got things like count A, which counts the number of populated cells, and count blank, which is looking for the blank cells. But you're limited to the type of data it is, rather than something specific. So what the Countif lets you do, as an example, is to look at a range of cells and look for something really specific and get Excel to count how many of those there are. So let's go through a few examples here. The first question here is asking, how many Holden drivers are there? So if we look over here at the list of cars, how many Holdens are there in this list? And that's what the Countif will tell you. So we're going to recreate the formulas over here to generate these answers that you see. So the first question, how many Holden drivers are there? So what we say is equals count if, open the brackets. Now there's only two things you've got to provide, which is the range you're looking at and the criteria, as in what you're looking for. If you get really stuck with some of these, you can click the FX and that will just give you the breakdown here. So first of all, the range is the car range. And secondly, the criteria, what we're looking for, is Holden. Now, if you're using the box, it will add quotes around text items for you. If you're entering the formula directly into the cell, don't forget to add the quotes yourself. When you click OK, 8 is the answer, and if you look down this list, there are 8 Holdens in this list. Now, the second example, we're going to do Countifs, so a plural version of the Countif. Now, this differs in that you can provide more than one thing you're looking at and checking. So you look at range 1 and you check it for the first thing. You look at a second range and check it for the second thing. And where both or all of these things are true, you can have more than two, it'll count up how many match. So if we look at this one, it's asking how many Holden drivers are there in Queensland. So we're going to look at the cars again to look for Holden. We're also going to look at the state and check it for Queensland. And if both of those things are true, we're going to count up how many match both of those criteria. So in this cell, we say equals count ifs, plural. Open the brackets. Now I'm going to click the FX here just to show you something. You can have more than one range and more than one criteria. So where it says criteria range 1, in this case, that is the cars, or it could be the state if you're checking that first. But we check the cars and we check that for Holden. It then brings up criteria range 2, which we're going to check the states list. So the state range E2 to E19, and we're going to check that for Queensland. Now, if both of those things are true, it's going to count up how many match both. And you can see that it's brought up criteria range 3 here if you have more things you want to check. But when you click OK here, you can see that there are 6 that match both of those criteria where the person's in Queensland and they drive a Holden. The next one is an example of average if. So what it's asking is, what is the average age of the plumbers? So here, there's actually 2 ranges we need to specify. The first is the lookup range, which will be the trades, and we're going to check for plumber. And then when it finds a match on plumber, it goes across to the age and uses that in the average calculation. So it goes like this, equals average if. There's only one thing we're checking, so if is fine. Open the brackets, and again, let me click the FX here so you can see the breakdown. So the range, first of all, is the trades. The criteria is plumber. And the average range is the age. So this range and this range have to be identically sized. So normally there are 2 columns in the same table, so that works well. But where it finds a corresponding value in column D, it'll go across to column F and retrieve that value and use it in the average calculation. So when you click OK, you can see that 43 is the average age of the plumbers. Now the last 3 are all to do with SUMIF. And the reason I've got 3 examples here is because this is probably the one you're going to be using the most. So what this says, a bit like average, is you've got 2 ranges. The first range is what you're looking at. The second thing you provide is what you're looking for. And then when it finds a match on that, you provide the sum range, which is going to pick up the value to add to a tally. So where there's a match in the first range, it takes the corresponding value and picks out the value in the sum range and uses that towards a total. So for example, the total number of pies eaten by the plumbers. For this, we're going to say equals SUMIF, singular. Open the brackets, and again, let me click the FX so you can see what I'm doing. Now the range is the trade. The criteria is plumber, and the sum range is the data in the pies column. So where it finds a plumber in the trade, it'll take the number in the pies and add that to a tally. The answer there is 21. There are 21 total pies eaten by the plumbers. The next one is an example of SUMIFS, because there's 2 things we need to check for. It's after the total number of jobs assigned to Queensland brickies. So we've got to check the state for Queensland, we've got to check the trade for brickie. Where both of those are true, it'll use the value in the jobs column and add that to a tally. So we start with equals SUMIFS, open the bracket, and click the FX. Now the sum range is a little bit different because what you're providing first is the thing you're adding up, whereas with the others you specified the criteria range first. So the thing we're actually aiming for is the jobs. So we're going to choose the job range here. It then pairs up the criteria range and the criteria just like the other functions did. So the first thing we check is the trade, and we check that for bricky. We then check the state for QLD. Click OK, and it tells us there's 70 jobs were assigned to Queensland brickies. So if both of those criteria are true, jobs is tallied. Now you can go extreme on this, and this last example is just a little bit silly just to kind of show you what's possible. What it's asking us to do is to calculate the total number of jobs assigned to New South Wales plumbers between the ages of 30 and 40 who drive a Holden. So there's actually 5 criteria here we've got to check. We've got to check the state for New South Wales, the trade for plumbers, the age, first of all, for greater than or equal to 30, then the age again for less than or equal to 40, and that's how you have to do it between. It's actually 2 separate criteria. And then lastly, checking the car to see if they drive a Holden. So let's just work it through. It doesn't take long once you know what you're doing. We start with equals SUMIFS, open the brackets, click the FX to see the box, and again we start with the jobs. So the thing you're actually trying to total. The criteria range first of all, let's start with state, and check that for New South Wales, NSW. The second thing we're going to check is the trade. We're going to check that for plumber. The third thing we're going to check is the age, and we check that to see if it's greater than or equal to 30. We then check the age again, and we check that to see if it's less than or equal to 40. So there's your 2 things against age. That's how you have to do it. The last criteria is the car, and we check that for Holden. So there's your list. Click OK, and you end up with 14 in total. So where all those criteria are true, there were 14 jobs allocated. Now, as you can see up here, it's a pretty long formula, but like I say, if you just kind of follow it through logically, it's not that hard. So like I said at the beginning, I reckon these are probably some of the most useful functions you can use in Excel, simply because you're likely to be using tables of data in your Excel. Everyone uses spreadsheets with tables, and it allows you to check for certain things and total things up based on conditions. So what I want you to do, if you haven't used any of these functions before, is to give them a go. Get your hands dirty. With this video, you'll find a full set of cheat sheets, training notes if you like, that walk you through the whole process with lots of examples. I'll also provide this spreadsheet so you can actually dissect the formulas that I've just created there and give them a go yourself. Alright, up to you. Thanks for sticking with me to the end, and I'll see you in the next video.